Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today, Manual Spreadsheets to AI-Powered Experiences, Increase Employee Productivity with Salesforce Workforce Engagement. My name is Michaela McCarthy, and I'm the Event Marketing Lead here at NeuraFlash. I'm really excited that you are joining us today. Today, you're going to hear from the NeuraFlash and Salesforce team as they discuss how Salesforce Workforce Engagement can help you optimize case routing, demand forecasting, and scheduling, and agent training, all within Salesforce. Let me quickly go over some housekeeping rules before we begin. After this webinar, we'll be sending the recording out to you all for your convenience. On the Zoom platform, beneath the screen, you'll see a bar pull up. Please click the Q&A button anytime throughout the webinar to ask any questions. We'll be having a 10-minute Q&A at the end. First, I'd like to introduce you to the NeuraFlash team members that you're going to be hearing from today. Lynn Olson, VP of Sales here at NeuraFlash, and Eric Sang, Director of Solution Engineering. I would also like to introduce you to our awesome partner who's joining us today, Matt Crane, Senior Director of Product Management at Salesforce. So without further ado, Lynn, I'll hand this over to you to get this session kicked off.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. Excited for the next 45 minutes to an hour together. Our agenda for today is to quickly review NeuraFlash for those of you that may not be familiar. We'll have Matt talk about workforce engagement messaging, and then we'll see the demo of workforce engagement in action by Eric Sang, and then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A, how we can get started and get the conversation started about where you guys are at with your workforce engagement journey. So we're excited to provide you some information and then follow up with you after. So thank you. All right, so if we talk about NeuraFlash for a couple minutes, I just want to level set on who NeuraFlash is, and we'll get right into contact center workforce engagement. But we are an SI consulting firm that's focused on transforming the customer experience. That's at our heart of what we do. If you see at the bottom side of the screen there, you can see that we are Service Cloud everything. And that's what we've built and developed our practices and solutions on. So everything from on the left-hand side there, Einstein bots, to field service transformation, to contact center, voice and telephony, and of course, insights and reporting. And again, our focus has been how we look holistically at an enterprise to transform how they interact with their customers, employees, and businesses. So that's us in a nutshell. So if I pivot to today's conversation, which is workforce engagement, we're really looking at contact center because that's traditionally where workforce engagement has lived. And many of us at NeuraFlash have over 20 years of contact center experience, from migrating from legacy to modern to optimizing to transforming. So we've been there, we've done it. We have over 70 Service Cloud voice deployments, which is very exciting and very exciting to me personally. I've seen it widely adopted over the past year and a half or so, due to the fact that it's a unified solution and it really brings together CRM, Service Cloud, and Contact Center, which hasn't historically been done. It's been third-party solutions. You haven't had the data married together. You haven't had reporting married together. And so Service Cloud Voice from a contact center perspective has been a huge initiative for us and very, very successful. And I bring that up because that's what makes me so excited about Salesforce Workforce Engagement, because it's truly a modern unified workforce engagement, workforce management solution that integrates all channels, data, and reporting in one single platform. And again, traditionally, I've seen, I should say in my experience, I have seen, macroed out Excel spreadsheets, all the different third-party tools that try to bring all this data together so that we can forecast our agents and do capacity planning and think about, how are we going to do this effectively across all these different channels, not just a single channel view. So if we think about that, that's where the power of Salesforce Workforce Engagement comes in. And again, that's what excites me, having the history and the knowledge from a contact center perspective. If you also think about it, if we think outside of the contact center, one of our expertise areas is field service. Now we can leverage, since the data is unified and in one place, we can now think about using field service and managing, forecasting our field service employees within the single tool of workforce engagement. So the power and the solution that is at our fingertips is excellent. And I can't say that enough, just being and having the experience in the contact center space itself. So that's exciting. I just want to say again, NeuraFlash is, our value is transforming customer experiences, customer services, and we're excited about where workforce engagement is going. So with that being said, I want to move into a couple poll questions. The first one being, are you using using a WFM WE tool today, or are you working on spreadsheets? You can answer that. That'd be great. Thank you. Okay, looks like we're getting a wide variety of responses here, which is great. Thank you. All right, I think we can close that poll, Michaela. All right, our second polling question. Do you support multi-channel, omni-channel forecasting today? You have 3 responses there. We'll give you a couple seconds to respond. All right, I see some answers coming in. We also have a bit of a variety. A lot of you must be doing single channel, what I'm seeing. All right. Thank you, Michaela. All right, so with that being said, and that introduction, I want to move right into Matt Crane. He is going to take us over the Salesforce Workforce Engagement messaging. So I'm going to pass it off to you, Matt. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah.
And hello again. My name is Matt Crane from Salesforce, and want to thank you all for spending your hour with us today. I know it's a lot to commit to yet another webinar, but do appreciate it. Plus, it gives me a great opportunity to make sure if my dress shirt still fits, which it barely does. So thank you all. So why did we get in this space? How did we get here? So let's talk about that. So we heard our customers asking for this capability for many years, but we really felt we had some very capable partners that were delivering this type of solution today. As we approached almost 2,000 agents ourselves in our contact center, we realized how challenged we were using our spreadsheet-based solution and started evaluating different offerings. Unfortunately, we felt they lacked in the areas on the left-hand side, while we were hoping more for areas, capabilities on the right-hand side. So, we forecasted with spreadsheets, as you can see on the left-hand side here. We really had a single channel view of information coming in, which was phone for us. We also supported digital channels, but really supported and worked on just primarily one channel, which I think is a common theme amongst workforce planners today. So ultimately, we developed a single channel capacity plan, and really we struggled with planning on-site employee training, delivering training to employees where they're in between calls or in between chats as they had moments in the workday. So what we wanted to deliver was a modern workforce engagement solution. So we wanted to provide intelligent forecasts, not just simple Holt-Winters mathematical models, some machine learning models. We wanted to provide omni-channel visibility, dynamic planning across our channels and skills and locations, and then really be able to deliver real-time in-stream employee training. Next slide. So what did we come up with? We came up with our high level goal or job to be done really is to plan for the right agent at the right time with workforce engagement. So we're providing intelligent forecasting. All of this you'll see with Eric's presentation next, but intelligent forecasting with machine learning capabilities, omni-channel planning, so I can see across all my different channels and build a plan that supports a variety of different channels. We really wanted to deliver all this planning and scheduling with a human-centric way, which is slightly different than what we've seen in the marketplace today, and empower and upskill agents, and all while taking advantage of these capabilities of the rest of the Salesforce platform. And hopefully that's why you all are here today. So next slide. I'm not asking that you believe me, but let's listen to one of our pilot customers here. And this is Canyon Bicycles. So they build top quality bikes out of Germany. If you're familiar with biking at all, you'll see them all over professional races. Unfortunately, not in my garage. I think their bikes cost more than the last car I purchased, but they really delivered some amazing capabilities. And that was just in the pilot as they worked through that with us and helped develop and refine and deliver our first release of our solution that came out in the summer. And you can see just in terms of what they were doing before, which was using Excel, and they delivered an 80% faster forecasting speed using this solution. Enough of talk, let's see it in real life here. So I'm gonna transition this over to Eric and let him take you through an actual demo.
Fantastic. Thank you, Matt, and thanks everyone for joining today's webinar. So before we jump into the demo, let's just give a little bit of background in terms of the scenario that we're going to outline here. And so this will encompass not only from the workforce engagement analyst's perspective and day-to-day challenges, but then also give you a quick overview in terms of the solution that we'll be showing to really solve some of these issues today. So in today's example, we have a organization we'll call NeuraFlash Outfitters, and we have John, who is the Contact Center manager. John's responsibilities day to day are really overseeing the entire service division. We'll say this consists of about 50 agents, and the entire team is split across different channels. So you're going to see a major theme today is thinking around that omni-channel or multi-channel feature and functionality. And so this team in particular is split across channels like phone, email, and chat here. On a day-to-day basis, John is tasked with scheduling his agents' workdays. You can imagine the challenge around this, even with just 50 agents across different channels and perhaps different time zones, it requires that John understands the hours they're working, how many agents are working at once, and then also, again, which channel each agent is handling and when. To really guide him through that process and workflow, he's really currently handling this process using Microsoft Excel and a few other tools, right? So every night, John has to actually go in and manually review any data collected from the previous day, the previous week, and manually start to build out schedules for all 50 agents individually in Excel. From there, he has to go into each agent's calendar, start to block off a shift so they know what they're going to be responsible for in their next day, and then also select the actual time for each channel there. He also has to notify his team of which shifts they're going to be staffed on via email. So he's sending individual emails perhaps back over to his team with a copy of that Excel sheet so they have visibility into their own schedule and also across the team there. But as you can see, it's a very error-prone process. Really trying to purpose Excel for something like this is, again, not only inefficient and time-consuming, but also creates headache for John as he's working through that. Some of the problems, right, on top of that, he really can't understand or foresee trends. So it's very static, leveraging some of the core components of Excel there, but he has to create a lot of those mathematical models to be able to build out that view there. So in the scenario, perhaps, let's say in October, what happens if they have 2 times the amount of cases or inquiries and he needs to staff more people? How does he plan things around vacations for his agents or sick days or things that may not be foreseen on a day-to-day basis? Lastly, one of the problems that John has is, again, this is kind of day-to-day management for his team, but how do we also handle things like turnover and attrition? So knowing that that pool of 50 agents and the exact agents that are working may shift week to week or quarter to quarter, how does John really enable his team to become more skilled and ultimately reduce that attrition across the team so that way, when he does have the right tools in place, he can also make sure that he's keeping his team motivated and satisfied with their work. So we're going to show you how we solve for all these challenges using Salesforce's Workforce Engagement. So you'll see, we're going to take a look at John's workflow on the platform here. So we're really moving from that manual, error-prone process in spreadsheets over to an intelligent and intuitive platform on Salesforce here. The first part of the process really starts off with that intelligent forecast. So you're going to see exactly how we can quickly and easily aggregate a data set that we can use and track the metrics that are going to be most applicable to create that customized forecast for his team. From there, we can start to create omni-channel capacity plans. Think of these as ways we can actually create a capacity plan for the team based on the skills and availability in advance. So you'll see exactly how do we plan for some of this and how do we actually create an omni-channel capacity plan temporarily for those time periods. You're going to see from there, and then how do we, once we have an understanding of the capacity plans, the demand, how do we now staff or assign the right agents based on skills and availability? And so we're going to take a close look at shift management in the platform there that enables those capabilities. And lastly, as we discussed throughout this entire process, how does John make sure his team again is engaged and challenged day to day in learning? So we're going to show you how you use My Trailhead, and you're able to kind of push work items or certain modules back over to the team to enable them to become more successful on these service workflows. So let's jump right into the first part of our demo. So as I mentioned, let's illustrate how we actually create an intelligent forecast. So before this all starts, right, when we set up workforce engagement, you have certain options around the mathematical model type that you want to use to create your intelligent forecast. As Matt had mentioned earlier, the more traditional path is to use that Holt-Winter's mathematical model. However, we have a more accurate framework and technology on the Salesforce platform to use a machine learning model. So that's the one that we're going to use today to show you how do we aggregate data across time, but then also use machine learning to be able to drive more accurate insight into your data sets there. So the first step, right, that John might work through is as he's creating his intelligent forecast. You'll see it's a simplified version of his workflow, right? So today in Excel, he may need to identify the data set, create some scripts that are able to manipulate the data. But you'll see quickly and easily, we can actually use kind of a guided flow or a wizard to walk through the creation of this intelligent forecast here. You have options. So the workload history is actually more just thinking about a dashboard to manage historical data, not trying to forecast in the future. We're going to focus today again on how do we forecast based on historical data for the demands of the members of the team from here. Once we move into the actual process of creating the intelligent forecast, the first step is to then create and select the workload history. So these are workload histories that are created. Think of these as data sets over a period of time. So you'll see here, these are actually a full year with 52 weeks of data. In this selection here, you'll see this actually can span across multiple channels. So not just our voice call history, but then also things like your chat history and case history. This is a particularly powerful component of the solution. We know many traditional workforce management tools are really primarily focused on the voice channel, but with workforce engagement, and as customers are really trying to adopt digital channels and other forms of engagement, we now have a solution to really blend those channels across and understand what does the workload capacity to look like here. In terms of the interaction type, again, we can also forecast for a variety of attributes, including the channel, as we mentioned, but also the region or location of these contact centers, and then whether or not there's a specific skill set that's required. In terms of the measurement, we can also dictate if it's going to be based on the handle time of these inquiries, or perhaps just based on the actual volume here. I'm going to go ahead and click on this first data set that we're going to use to create this intelligent forecast. You'll see here the next step is to now set reference dates for that intelligent forecast. So this is, again, setting that time period from which we want to generate that actual data. So we're telling the model which start and end date do we want this model to reference and build data off of. If we're concerned about any outliers, we're going to show you how we actually handle that in the next section here. The next portion of that, once we've identified the historical data we want to use, is actually set the dates for our forecast workload, right? So we're going to say perhaps we're starting the forecast date and we want to forecast for 9 weeks out. So it's going to, again, create this forecast model for that time range that we've outlined here. The last step here is to choose a specific interval that we want to create the forecast for. I'll choose weekly in this instance, and then we'll go ahead and say maybe this is an October tier 1 support forecast. We can add any details or descriptions into this, but quickly and easily you can see here we've identified those data sets. We've given the model an indication of exactly which data points we want it to look at, and now it's going to leverage that machine learning model to then go ahead, slice and dice, cross the data, cluster as needed, and then create that intelligent forecast that we can then leverage. You'll see here this process can take a few hours, as again, it's aggregating a large data set. We have one already prepared that we can run through though for today's purposes. So once the intelligent forecast has had some time to run through, this is an example of the output that you could expect from here, right? So this is an intelligent forecast across all channels, and you'll even see it has what we refer to as adjusted outliers, and then we talked about that machine learning forecast as well. First and foremost, you're going to see in the center part of your screen, we actually have a data graph view that illustrates the forecast plan based on the historical data and the models that we have. So this dotted line here is, again, the forecast model. You'll see this is based on a week-to-week range. And so the historical data has told us that perhaps this is a general trend that we can accurately forecast towards in terms of the actual total volume of inquiries or cases. And then you'll see, we'll take a look at historical views, but we can actually then go back and understand what the actual volume was during that duration as well. This again gives us an indication within a threshold across this kind of average here of the forecasted volume of what the high end or what the low end may be, again, based on the historical data that we calculated. We can shift the graph view in terms of different intervals as well. So this is again showing on a week-to-week basis. We can even take a look if it's perhaps daily. So you'll see here, if I click daily, this is actually going to go ahead and shift it on a day-to-day perspective to show peaks and valleys in that. And you'll see here, again, we can use a lot of this to start to measure and start to forecast even some intraday changes. And then lastly as well, we can also look at some of the hourly components here. So you'll see as you continue to kind of lessen the actual interval in terms of the date time range, you'll see there's kind of more variance that we're able to observe. But of course, we're looking at perhaps if it's weekly, more so around that high level week-to-week basis, who should we plan on staffing for the team here? You can also quickly and easily dynamically change and adjust what this graph view looks like. So again, this is based on perhaps the volume, the number of inquiries, but again, we can quickly and easily change it to go ahead and look at perhaps handle time of some of the measurements here, right? So if we think that handle time is actually a better indicator versus the number of cases or inquiries, we can actually quickly and easily toggle between these options and gain a perspective of how to balance those out there. In terms of the workload types, again, we're looking at the forecast and the historical view. And then again, we have the option to choose the date range as well. So again, this is the forecast range, trying to look in towards the next couple of weeks here to start to build that plan out. Let me just show you quickly though, we can also take a look at historical data within a single click here, right? So we know, as we talked about that workflow in Excel, you may have to create many different versions of your graphs, and slicing and dicing that data on the fly is not as simple. But quickly and easily on the Salesforce platform, we can go ahead, select different pick list values and quickly and easily adjust the charts. But you'll see here, again, this is actually historical data. So these are actual volumes that we're seeing over time here as well. A lot of this can be used to validate the accuracy of the models that we have here. And as we showed earlier, when you're creating these forecast models and using those data sets, although we're creating that model at the start and it takes a few hours, you don't have to go through that process every single time, right? That data can automatically be updated and generated with new data sets that you have. Here on the right side, there's different versions of and different ways we can actually look at the forecast model, right? So we can actually segment by specific channels. As I mentioned, this is a unique aspect with Salesforce Workforce Engagement, not only thinking around the voice channel, but then also thinking around channels such as Salesforce Chat or other areas or other mediums like email or web to case. And then you can see here, we can also filter down by a specific region, a specific skill, perhaps. So maybe we'll say we want to take a look at the forecast specifically for customer service. And then you can also use custom attributes. Maybe your team uses a tiered model for support here as well. But quickly and easily, you can see throughout the actual data set, we're able to filter through those data points and create a more accurate view of that forecast. We can also shift some of these views, not only by channel, but also by region and also by skill here as well. So naturally, as we look at this forecast model day to day as a workforce engagement analyst, we certainly understand there's certain impacts to the business that are not measurable purely by data points. And there might be certain areas that we know are outliers that are contributing perhaps to our forecast model. So what we can actually do here down below is we can actually pinpoint certain data sets that may be contributing negatively or providing false information to our model, and then decide how we want to alter or fix those pieces of it. So maybe, for example, we understand on a certain day in August on the chat channel for Tier 1, perhaps there were more chats than anticipated due to maybe a website issue for this organization, right? So maybe that chat volume is not representative for our workload history. We don't want that to impact the model over time. We can actually go ahead and manually adjust those data points. And again, there's different methods we can go about doing this here. So we can, first of all, either apply a percentage, whether it be positive or negative. So in this case, for example, if we believed the model is going to say you were likely understaffed, even though, again, it was a website issue, so the chat volume went up, you can actually go ahead and say, we actually don't need that additional set of agents, right? We might scale down 10% across the board here. So there's ways you can apply percentage, either positive or negative. We can decide to replace the data in totality by giving this a hard-coded value. So if we want to understand, perhaps let's just replace that whole data set. The average is 10 work items, for example. We can go ahead and tell the model, use this data point, don't look at that day and that outlier there. Alternatively, we can just actually go ahead and just skip that data point. So that's just fully taking that date, taking this actual detailed data view and just pulling it out of the model, making sure, again, it doesn't impact the other forecasts that we have here. Of course, we can go back and annotate with more details to make sure that we're providing context. That way, if we look back at historical data, what were some of those outliers? What are some of those trends? Perhaps if outliers are occurring too much, maybe it's not so much an outlier anymore. It is actually something that we do need to forecast for here. So we always have opportunities to append or add some metadata to justify some of these workflow adjustments here. Once we hit adjust, you actually see, and depending on the data sets and the impact, the model will automatically go ahead and update and perform that change for us from there. So now that we have a good sense of the forecast, let's think around how do we create what's referred to as an omni-channel plan. So this, again, is thinking a couple weeks out. Again, we have a good indication of the volume of inquiries and cases that we need to plan towards. Now, how do we actually staff the right team to do this here? So using this omni-channel plan creation tool, you can see here we can set an omni-channel plan start and end date. We think this is particularly powerful. One of our customers is constantly having to change omni-channel settings for their team, right? Shifting different queues, different skills, different availability. This gives us a great opportunity to look at that forecast and then create an omni-channel plan in advance, so we're not making those changes on the fly and not creating more redundant and manual process here. So we'll say, for example, in this forecast, let's go ahead and create an omni-channel plan for 12 weeks out. This is going to be specific for perhaps one of the regions that we're mapping towards. So we'll say this is the San Francisco Contact Center that we're selecting, and then we're going to select the job profiles, right? So based on this forecast, we can now determine what are the right skills and requirements and also availability, whether it be region, that we need to actually start to staff for. So this is thinking about, again, those job profiles here. We'll go ahead and say this is, we're going to create this omni-channel plan specifically for Tier 1 customer service. And once we've gone ahead and selected that, we'll go ahead and give this a name. So I'll say this is the October Tier 1 support, and we'll say Tier 1 support omni-channel plan. Again, we can go ahead and add more descriptions if we need to, but quickly and easily within a simple number of clicks here, this is again going to go ahead and automatically calculate the omnichannel plan suited towards this forecast that we have here. Again, this is still using those same models, so it will take a little bit of time to process this data, but let me just show you what the end result will look like. So now we have the forecast we looked at. Here's the staffing plan that is in accordance with that here. And so you'll see this is an example that shows, in this case, the number of shifts that are required based on that forecast, and then also the number of shifts we have available, and then who's been assigned to those as well, or what the quantities of that looks like here. So you can see based on this chart that we have here, the number of required is this line right here. So we do have enough available shifts to fulfill that need, right? So if you notice that the available chart or bar is lower than that required level, then we know we're particularly understaffed. In some instances that you see here on the right, we're actually might be a little bit overstaffed in terms of the number of shifts that we need, right? And you'll see here under the assigned section, this is just giving us an indication we have enough shifts and agents to be able to handle the demand, but we haven't assigned quite enough yet, right? So we're going to look at how do we identify the right skills to be able to staff for these specific shifts that you have here. Again, we're showing this data by by all the job profiles, but we can quickly and easily filter down by maybe only tier 1 or tier 2 support if we need to, but you'll see we can quickly and easily dynamically shift that view as needed. Just with that intelligent forecast, as we demonstrated earlier, we can also shift data points. Again, this is thinking through either outliers in data or certain data elements that may not apply. So again, we can actually apply a percentage, either positive or negative, to either increase or decrease, in this case, based on the number of shifts. Again, we could also replace it with a hard-coded value for the number of staff that's going to be required here. So let's talk about how we identify the right skills for this omni-channel plan. So again, we know across the different channels, the region, we have some indication of what this looks like, but how do we make sure we fulfill the number of assigned shifts and agents that we need to match this forecast here? So what we can do is, and very similarly, as Lynn mentioned, with our background on field service, think around how do we create service resources and start to think around skills required here. So this is an example of how you might configure a service resource or an agent for this contact center. And then we can also think through how do we start managing, for example, skills that are required, right? So we can actually go ahead quickly and easily select the skills that are required for these agents. And then we'll take a look at resource calendar, resource capacity. But this is where we start to think around, again, those skills, who's available, time zones, scheduling preferences. We can even manage things like a PTO request, but quickly and easily on the platform, we can identify who's going to be the most suitable for these shifts that we need to go ahead and schedule here. Once we have a good indication, we have that set of agents that we're looking to go ahead and staff, let's jump into a view of perhaps what one of these shifts looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and select the San Francisco Contact Center here, and you'll see we can go ahead and actually quickly and easily look at a calendar view across different shifts that we need to go ahead and staff for. So this is breaking down, in this case, tier 1 and tier 2 support. You can see some of the agents have been assigned to their shifts, but there's a lot that are also tentative and haven't been assigned yet. So once we have created all of those service resources and map the skills, we can actually use that data and intelligently surface the right candidate for the work here, right? So as John is working through and managing his shifts, he can see that this shift has not been assigned yet. Instead of John going through a large list of all of his agents, trying to cross their calendars and their availability, he can actually quickly and easily go ahead and retrieve or get candidates that are suitable for this shift here, right? In this case, we have an example with Tim Service. Perhaps he is the only agent that is the most applicable when we think around skills and availability, and you'll see there's a preference match score. If there were multiple agents that were qualified or suited for the shift, they would also appear here. We can quickly and easily select that. But if we go ahead and submit that quickly and easily, you see Tim has actually been assigned to the shift here. And so as his day starts, he'll know exactly what he's responsible for, which tier and which skill set or which queue he's working on for that day. Really, to wrap up here, let's take a look at the agent experience. So John is working through and assigning those shifts back to his team. When Tim signs into his Service Cloud console for the day to start working off cases, he can quickly and easily see perhaps in his calendar, we can create workflows to go ahead and push over those specific shifts onto his calendar. So you can see when he's assigned for a chat shift or a phone shift, quickly and easily, he can also cross the availability of his colleagues to see if there's any coverage that's required across the team here. And as Tim starts his day and he's setting himself available for omnichannel, there's also ways that we can also empower and enable Tim to be able to grow and become more skilled as an agent. So we talked briefly about that by trailhead and employee engagement type workflow. So just to give you a sense of what this might look like, John might decide that perhaps a new service policy is being launched across the team, and he wants a way to quickly and easily engage his team with some learning modules to be able to better enable them, right? So you'll see here we can, as John, we can quickly and easily select one of the agents that we want to push or assign learning to. Based on the trailhead modules that we have available, we can actually go ahead and search for maybe team engagement training for service managers. I'm going to go ahead and assign that learning. And if we jump back, perhaps, let's say we're more so on Tim or that agent view. Once he sets his availability for perhaps his work items or his cases, he can actually now see, in conjunction with the case he's been assigned to, maybe some trailhead learning that's also applicable for him, right? So we can actually leverage these as work items instead of sending emails out and following up with our team. Omnichannel is now handling the routing and management of these work items for learning. So we can monitor this, see if the team has completed it. This behaves just as Trailhead does, is just more embedded within the Service Cloud console here for the agents. And it does provide, again, a level of that learning back to the team, but then also some gamification in terms of badges and rewarding the team for completing these as well. That's it for the demo. I'm going to pass it back over to Lynn, and she's going to talk around why we think we're uniquely positioned with workforce management here at Neuroflash.
Thank you, Eric, finding my unmute button there. A great demo. Thank you for preparing and doing that for us. So yeah, so what sets us apart? What's the NeuraFlash difference? I think we talked a lot about this at the beginning of the webinar. We have a lot of experience in this space across workforce engagement platforms, migrating spreadsheets, understanding contact center, and of course the Salesforce experience just all around Service Cloud. So I think when we think about what we need to do for businesses, it's, you know, maximizing the value of the solution, and that's really what NeuraFlash can help you with and is really good at. The second section there, NeuraFlash products. So again, given our expertise in understanding this marketplace, we've been able to build additional capabilities like QM, scorecards, and reporting to enhance the current workforce engagement solution. And that brings a ton of value, again, maximizing the value of the workforce engagement platforms and your business, you know, operations. And then lastly, there are managed services. Again, we understand the importance of changing businesses, world events, everything happening around us. Everyone needs additional support and services. We do have a full practice for helping you manage your daily operations, and we have flexible, nimble support packages. And you know, our goal is to help you be successful, and not only today but in the future. So that's where we feel we are really different and can help you on your workforce engagement journey. So what can we do as we get started? We'd love to talk with you. So contact NeuraFlash or Salesforce, and we'd love to set some time with you to get on your side of the table, understand where you guys are at, like I mentioned, in that journey, where you guys are going, and where we can provide value. And then lastly, we have some startup packages that we've created, and we know time to market is important, and we can get you up and running in 5 weeks. So we're excited to engage. So please do reach out. If you want to contact me directly, feel free. Or again, just contact your NeuraFlash or Salesforce rep. Here's my contact information, and would be happy to chat with you. So thank you. Thanks, everyone. And so I would like to pass it off back to Michaela. We have plenty of time for Q&A, so please ask questions. We're here, again, to support you and get engaged.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Lynn. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Eric, for such a great session. So yeah, as Lynn said, please, you know, keep them coming, keep the questions in the Q&A bar at the bottom, and we'll answer them. So the first section, or the first question that we have for this Q&A section is, what use cases does Salesforce Workforce Engagement work best with?
Yeah, thanks, Michaela. I think I can try to answer that, and if Eric wants to add on, he's welcome to. Really, I think where we see ourselves fitting with the current release of the product, which again just came out in our summer release in June, is really a company who is on spreadsheets today, a lot like Salesforce. I mean, we had 2,000 agents, but maybe you only have 500 agents, just like Eric's fictitious company there. And that would be a great use case. You're using spreadsheets today. You want to move off of spreadsheets. You're tired of over planning or under planning, forecasting your work, and you want to move into something like this. Additionally, if you're using maybe a workforce management solution that is, you're not using the fullest extent of it as well and suffering from the lack of usage, that's another one we can engage with and talk you through. Happy to show you, what we can do, what we can't do. The product evolves 3 times a year. If you're not familiar with that today, we do 3 releases a year. And that's, the product is going to evolve. It's going to evolve here with our winter release, which just is coming out now in sandboxes and some production orgs. And you'll see that happen in spring and summer. You're going to see a lot of updates. So hopefully that answers that question. And Eric can add on to that, or if there's any additional questions, we're welcome to take those.
The next question that we just had come through is, can we still use training mechanisms without my trailhead?
That's a great question. So yeah, so I'll take a crack at that one as well. So today it's tightly integrated with our Salesforce trailhead from an LMS perspective. We are working on ways to open that up to additional LMS systems. So you can use outside LMSs, but right now it's just tightly integrated with Salesforce.
Thanks, Matt. The next question we have here is, we use different skills and queues. Is workforce engagement a good fit for us?
Yeah, I could take that one there. So absolutely. If your team is staffed to manage a variety of skills and queues, right? I think we demonstrated some of the components there in the demonstration today, but workforce engagement is absolutely a great fit for that. We're seeing lots of customers, right, that may have multiple channels through Salesforce, whether it be Salesforce chat and messaging and email and web the case. So certainly using the platform to be able to forecast across different queues or different channels absolutely can be leveraged. And then even different skills, right? So I think we showed a little bit today, what are the skills required for some of the work items or cases that the team need to work through. We really think the combination of being able to forecast accordingly for skills and queues is one of the advantages you have on the platform here. As I mentioned throughout the demonstration, we know traditional workforce management is really focused on telephony, right? So we can now, again, start to think across the board, across different channels, especially as customers' channels of choices tend to change over time here.
Thanks, Eric. The next question that we have here is, does workforce management consider telephony as one of the channels to be considered in?
Yeah, so I'll start with that one. Yeah, so you definitely can use telephony as well. So we know that if you don't have Service Cloud Voice, your telephony data may not exist within Salesforce, but we do have a mechanism to bring that data in and consume it as part of this process. And Eric and his team have a lot of experience in this area, so they can get into the nitty-gritty details. But yes, phone is one of those channels for sure. It supports all the standard Salesforce channels as well as custom entities. So you can bring in data outside of Salesforce. I mentioned phone, but there's other ones as well too. So if you want to bring in additional data, like maybe you're doing chat outside of Salesforce, you could do that in as well.
Yeah, and I'll mention on the Neuroflash side, we've been very fortunate to be partnered with Salesforce over the last year on Service Cloud Voice. And so as a lot of our customers are bringing voice natively onto Salesforce here, natural fit with workforce engagement to leverage what's referred to as that voice call record. But as Matt had mentioned, right, there's certainly options. Ideally, customers are on Service Cloud Voice. If not, there's certainly ways we could integrate to other platforms and bring those data sets in to create the forecasting.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Eric. The next question we have here, we schedule many hourly shifts per employee throughout a day. Can WE accommodate this?
Yes, you can. So, I mean, we were just, you can create shifts in whatever duration you'd like. and schedule those as in terms of hours or days, or a large shift that say goes from 6 to 6 or 8 to 5. So you have a lot of different options in terms of creating shifts and scheduling those shifts.
Thanks, Matt. The next question we have here is, does workforce engagement allow for shift adherence monitoring?
That's a great question. So we are going to be releasing some historical adherence capabilities in the product in upcoming releases. And we're looking for some input on developing some real-time adherence as well. So as of the current release, let's call it summer into winter. Let's call that a fall release, which is not really a release, just in case you know that. But let's say it's sort of a tweener release here. We don't have that adherence built in, but we'll have a historical adherence coming in the next release, and then we'll have some real-time adherence on the roadmap, let's call it in 2022.
Thanks, Matt. The next question here, it's not all of our channels are in Salesforce. We're using voice with someone else. Would this solution work for us still?
Yes, I can take that one. The answer is absolutely, right? I think as we mentioned earlier, you may be using a different telephony provider than Service Cloud Voice, but absolutely you can still leverage integrations and bring those data points into work items in Salesforce, and then be able to build a forecast based on that. It even extends beyond voice, right? So if you have other channel providers of chat or messaging, you can still create custom objects and custom work items to be able to build that forecast off of from there. So it's very flexible, nimble as a solution here.
Thanks, Eric. The next question we have here, could you manage shifts in a multi-client model, a BPO who would have 100+ clients and different needs?
That's one of those questions I want to say it's good for you to reach out and talk to us about that one in particular. I'd like to learn a little bit more about that. In theory, it sounds like we could be able to do that, but the devil probably is in the details about how you want to handle that. We could definitely create a forecast for that work. We can definitely create a schedule, but do we actually own those agents? Can we schedule them? Are they in the system to schedule them? So I think that's one of those ones where it merits a little bit deeper conversation. So reach out to Lynn and we'll set up some time to chat and we can figure out the details on that one.
Thanks, Matt. The next question we have here is, how robust is customization to resource staffing PTO, specifically assigning certain allotments based on historical volume, full FTE need, and their skill?
Yeah, I can take that one here. The quick answer is absolutely. It's the customization abilities. We highlighted some of this at a high level today. Certainly welcome a discussion to deep dive into this, but we consider things like PTO, which I see in the question here, historical volume, full-time employees. They have certain features and functions that, the one that comes to mind here is thinking around service resource preferences. So this is, again, thinking through within each individual service resource, they may have a certain preference in terms of the hours of availability, the skills that are required there that we're matching towards. There are abilities as well to manage things like timesheets and resource absences, they call them. So you can go ahead and have your team go ahead and fulfill a service resource absence if they're going to be unavailable on PTO there. And those are all factors that would then influence how we think around creating things like the omnichannel capacity plan.
Thanks, Eric. Now that was our last question. So if anybody has any other questions, please click the Q&A button at the end and we can answer them for you. If not, if that was our last question for today, thank you all for joining this webinar today. We know your time's important. And as Lynn said, her contact information is on this slide here. So please reach out with any questions that you have. We would love to just have a conversation with you. But we'll be sending out the recording afterwards as well, so you'll have her contact information. So thank you everyone for joining. We'll stay on for a few more minutes if there's any other questions that come up.
Thanks, everyone.